Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. So this is the spring day that we are waking up to in East Tennessee today, and I'm hearing that many of you have this same weather. So I thought today would be a great day to craft and watch craft videos. So I wanted to get a video on today, and this one is going to be another boho themed flip. And we're going to start with this stool that I thrifted at Goodwill. And it actually is in really good condition like it is. And I don't think it looks bad at all. But I don't like these blonde legs. And also the fabric. I have some beautiful boho fabric that I thrifted that I want to cover this with. So I'm just going to start out by sanding all the finish off these legs, and this is a soft wood, so it didn't take a whole lot of sanding. And now I'm adding some antiquing wax to these legs because I wanted to darken them. So once I get these legs finished, then I'm going to move on to the seat. So I start by cutting enough fabric to go around the bottom and maybe an inch to spare. So I just lay it on here and just kind of cut it as I go instead of measuring and all that. I just do things the quick way. Sometimes I regret that, but it often works. I just love this fabric, and I thrifted it for $4, and it's an upholstery or at least upholstery quality fabric. So I thought that was a really good deal. So after I cut this, then I'm just going to start by hot gluing it on, and then I'll go back through and staple. Because this is round, there's going to be some pleating, so I just start with all four sides and just kind of glue those in, and then I just pull these up in pleats. So I start right in the middle of the leftover fabric, and then I pleat the other two sides, if that makes sense. And I pull this really tight. And like I said, I glue that, but I also glue down inside those pleats so that they'll fit tight. And I don't know if you can see that I'm doing that here, but adding that glue inside the pleats really helps. And then, like I said, after I get all this glued, and I just kind of do that as a temporary hold here, and then I'll go back through with the staples. But after I get all that glued, then I come through with just a manual stapler. I could have taken it outside and used the air stapler, but for this one, just the manual stapler worked fine. And I just had a hammer handy so that I could finish nailing that in where it didn't go in enough. So I just go all the way around it, stapling and hammering and adding extra glue in those pleats to give it more of a smooth finish rather. And then once I get that done, then I also thrifted some really pretty trim, and I thought that, or really pretty ribbon, and I thought that ribbon had a real good boho look to it. So I really lucked up with this piece because I just happened to find both the items that I needed to finish it with at the thrift store. I don't sell much boho in my store, but I do have it occasionally, and when I do, it sells really well. But this one is going in my granddaughter's room. And then here I'm just adding that trim to the bottom, and I'm just going to hot glue it. So I just run a bead of hot glue along both sides of that ribbon, and just glue it on. And I don't even use fabric glue here. I'm just using regular hot glue. And I know that it's just going to hold because fabric to fabric glues really well. So that quickly, this first item is almost complete. And I have very little in it because I think I thrifted the stool for $10, and then maybe $3 for the ribbon and $4 for the fabric, which I have a lot of that fabric left over. So here I'm just securing that in and cutting off the remaining, and that's all there is to this stool. Now I could have added some sort of boho fringe to the bottom, but I like the look of this without it. So now to go in this vignette, I'm gonna embellish these candles. So as you've probably seen in some of my other videos, I just cut a little section of a sock, and you don't have to worry about those edges because here especially I want those frayed edges. So I'm just cutting that little maybe a 2 to 3 inch section of the sock, and I'm not going to worry about those little ribs not being exact here because I'm going to be covering this with that same ribbon that we put on that stool. And it just so happened that I had almost exactly enough for these 2 candles left. So again, I'm just going to glue this all the way around, and I don't even bother putting glue all the way around. I just secure it where it meets together in the back because this sleeve is going to be removable, and then I can put any other kind of decor I want on it to go with whatever vignette I'm using these in. So I just put that same ribbon on both of these candles, and then I'm going to add some extra embellishment because I started thinking about what kind of flowers I could put on it that look boho themed. And so I'm going to do a couple of flowers that are boho, and I'm going to glue them on here in that seam because then it'll hide the seam. So the first flower that I'm working with, I'm sure that you've seen me do before if you've watched me long at all. But I'm just going to take this maybe 3 inch section of some fabric that I just tore, and I'm going to glue down one side of it and fold the other side down and glue that to make almost like a cylinder shape. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and cut little slits in the end that isn't glued. And I'm just going to cut right up to that glue, but not through the other side. So I hope you can see here what I'm doing. I'm just putting little thin slits in here. And I'm going to go all the way down, and but being very careful not to cut through. So once I get all this cut, I just cut it until I feel like I've cut it long enough, and it just so happened I had exactly enough here to do this flower that I was working on. But one of my viewers gave me a very smart idea of building these little flowers on a little round piece of felt. Well, I didn't have any felt that was the right color, so I just used some of this Warm and Natural here and cut a little circle. And now I'm just going to hot glue this all around the outer edge. And you can make this little circle here, whatever size you want your flower. You want to go make this just a little smaller here. As you can see, this is going to be the outer edge. So I just glue it all the way around, and then I took a bead of glue on the inside of this, and then just kind of brought this on around on the inside so that I have 2 layers of petals here. This could be done with any fabric. I'm using a tea towel here cut into strips because I wanted this to have more of a rustic look, I guess, because I want it to be more boho, and I just felt like this would work out better. Then to add even more boho to this, I'm just going to take this twine, and I tie a knot in the end and and put that in the center, glue that right there in the center. And then I just start twisting it around and gluing, just like if we were making the rosettes that we've made before. I'm just kind of twisting that around and gluing it. And then I just kind of keep doing that until I feel like the center is large enough for this flower. You could use any kind of string here, yarn if you wanted, but because I'm going boho, I just felt like this twine or jute was the right material. And as you can see here, I'm using 2 strands because I wanted to give it more dimension. So I'm just twisting those 2 strands and gluing them around the center. And then once it's large enough, then I just cut that off and secure the end, and that's all this little flower will need. And like I said, then I'm just going to glue it to where the 2 ends of the trim met, and that'll hide that seam there and embellish this candle. And then for the other, I wanted it to have this same look, but I wanted to do it a little different. So I'm taking this wired jute from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just cutting little loops. Now in hindsight, I would have went smaller with my loops because the flower was a little larger in the end than I wanted it to be. But just try not to go too large on these loops because, like I said, mine just wasn't exactly like I wanted it. So I just cut several of these, and then these will be my little petals on the flower. And again, I'm just going to start with that little center, and then I'll glue these petals all around the edges. I guess to compensate for these petals being so large, I could have started inward more, toward the center more, but like I said, it just wasn't quite as small as I would have liked it to be. I felt like it was a little overpowering. So then on the second layer of petals, then I'm going to glue in the center of each of those petals to kind of fill in that area. So once I get all these filled in, then this little flower is going to need, or this large flower is going to need a center also. So I'm going to use that same technique that I used on the other center, and then I'm going to use a different fabric. So I'm going to use where I use the other fabric on the inside, or on the outside, and then this jute on the inside. Now, since I'm using this jute on the outside, then I'm going to use the other fabric on the inside. But first, I'm going to glue this little wooden button on here because it'll give me a better base, I feel like, to work on. And then I want just a little bit of that wooden bead to show on the outside. So I'm going to build that center just the same way, but I'm going to stop just short of the outside of this little button. And then that adds just another layer to this flower, and I like the way it turns out in the end. Except that I do wish it was smaller. So once this flower is complete, and you can see I didn't use a whole lot of length there on that piece because it's not going to have to be very large at all. But once this flower is complete, then again I'll just glue it to the seam of that ribbon on the other candle. And then that just kind of marries the two of them together and gives them more of a boho theme. So then that will complete the second item in our little flip here. Or I don't guess you could call this one a flip. So now we're going to move on to the third item. And the third item is a little charger. And I found some of these chargers at a thrift store, and they were made of straw. And they're real sturdy straw. And so I'm just going to use this as a charger to go in this vignette. And I had this little stencil, and decided to stencil it on this plate. Well, because that inside kind of dips in, I thought it would be really hard to get this to work out, but I thought if I messed it up, I would just paint it and do something different with it. But as it turns out, just carefully holding this, it worked out fine. So I thought this stencil turned out really good on here. And then I wanted to use that "You Are My Sunshine," but obviously it wasn't going to work at the bottom like that. So I just decided to kind of separate those lines and add that to this little charger. And I think that turned out really cute. And I'm using the buttercream from Dixie Belle here. I'm not sponsored, but that's just the color that I used. That's the white that I used in this vignette. Then I had this little sugar mold here and decided not to paint it, just to add this "You Are My Sunshine" to it. And it could be used to display floral in, or as a pencil holder, or just whatever you wanted to use it for. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you and your family.